Hey guys, Jeremy here, KL70C. I've had a lot of people ask about this particular tripod. This is the Mastwerks 33-foot tripod. And today, let's talk about it. So this is the Mastwerks 33-foot tripod. Very easy to use. So anything on this tripod that has a locking mechanism, it's actually just a locking cam, and it's very easy to unlock. It's just a matter of pulling it open, doing your extension, and then locking it right back. So extremely easy to use. So if you look on the lower hub, there is a bubble, so it's very easy to level this tripod up. So the mast itself is exactly 33 feet when it's fully extended. And the tripod itself, once it's set up fully extended, is 4.76 feet. To deploy this, we would just go to each leg, unlock the cam, extend the legs, and we would just do this on all three sides. Then you would just unlock the upper cam, and it would just telescope out. And depending on what terrain you're on, you can adjust these where it has a more standard stance, or you can do a more narrow stance, or you can do a very wide stance. So we're on pretty level ground, so we're just gonna go with the standard stance. Then to level this, it's just a matter of unlocking the locking cams and centering your bubble. Now you have the initial setup of the tripod itself. So in the kit, you get 3 figure-8 winders. One is for your upper guide ring, and the other is for your lower guide ring. And they're all on one spool, so it's very easy to deploy. So a part of the guide kit is the guide rings itself, and these are different sizes. So this one would go on the lower section of the mast, this one would go in the higher section. And these guide rings are pretty much dummy proof. So as far as the guide rings, they just pull apart, maybe, and they would just slide right over this section of the mast. And same thing with the upper. Then once your rings are in place, these are color coded, so you have your blue for your blue ring, then your yellow for your yellow ring or your upper ring. These all have the toggles. So it's just a matter of looping it through, looping it back through, and then this will just set right in. So now you have a secure connection. Part of the guide kit is the stakes itself. Now these are 14 inches. So these stakes, you don't want to put them in a sandy soil or very loose soil. These are more for a hard, compact ground. Then the last thing you're going to get in the kit is your rotating arm. So these have a lock on themselves. You just push it right in and then give it a quarter turn, and then it locks right in place. So this antenna system is built for the Buddipole and the Buddy Hex, and it has the adapter on the end for the Versatee. So you would just screw this Versatee on. And so this is a quick connect. This piece just pops right out for if you're using the Buddy Hex. So one thing to keep in mind, the payload on this tripod and the other ones is 12 pounds. If you're using the Buddy Hex, they do not want you extending the last 2 extensions. So essentially, you would keep these locked. That provides stiffness for a much heavier load like the Buddy Hex. They don't want you extending the top 2 sections unless you have a light load and the winds are less than 10 miles an hour. I don't know what exactly they mean as a light load. There's no specific number what's considered a light load. So what we'll do, I'll set this up in real time, and I'll kind of just give you a story of how I got into ham radio. So it all started a very long time ago. I was first licensed in 2006, And what happened way before that, when I was just a young boy, we moved around quite a bit actually, and we lived in a lot of mobile homes. So growing up in the South in Georgia, where there's a lot of severe weather, I kind of had a love-hate relationship with weather. I love the science behind it. I was fascinated, even in science class, with the cloud formation, with lightning itself, to the point where I was really fascinated with it. But then at the same time, because I lived in a mobile home, every time there was a chance for severe weather, we always had to leave. So that's kind of where that love-hate relationship came from. Going further, when I first was able to drive, that fear was always there in the back of my mind, but I was more knowledgeable, I guess you can say, of my surroundings and when severe weather would actually come through. So I got my license at 16, and me and a friend of mine, we had the bright idea to be storm chasers. This was about the time, maybe a few years earlier, that Twister came out. So like a bunch of dummies, we would run around when severe weather happened and just try to, try to see something. Fortunately for us, we never got ourselves in a predicament where it was just unsafe altogether, but that possibility, that chance was definitely there. So moving on up a couple of years, in a mobile home, I was at home. My dad and my sister were there, and we had some severe weather come through. Now typically when that would happen, we would always leave, go somewhere. In this particular case, it kind of snuck up on us pretty quickly. We didn't get a chance to move, so I was in the bedroom. My dad was in the living room on the couch watching TV. My sister was in her bedroom. A severe storm rapidly formed. We didn't have really no warning at all. And the power went out, the wind picked up, and we were, all right, we gotta go. So I made it as far as out of the bedroom into the living room. My dad made it out of the living room into the hallway before you get to the back door. And my sister just had got out of the bedroom into the living room. And the next thing that I remember was just the ceiling collapsing. It was one of those things where you really didn't know what happened. You suspected the worst. So I couldn't move at all. I couldn't hear anybody. And the kind of thing that runs through a young boy's mind is, all right, this is it. I was just waiting for the wind to pick up and a tornado come down and just take everything that my home and everything that I knew away. Fortunately, that didn't happen. And what had happened, we had some severe weather come through, some straight line winds. We had a big oak tree right next to the house, and it had blew it over on top of our mobile home, demolished it. My dad, who was on the couch, got up just in time. The base of the tree had hit the couch, and it sent the couch straight through the floor embedded into the ground. I got a big C-130 flying over me. Nobody was hurt too bad. My sister did end up with a fractured back. My dad was able to get out. Me and my sister were trapped inside. He was able to get help, and some rescue workers came and got both me and my sister out. So after that, I was really fascinated with weather. So after that, got my tech license, went through the Skywarn class, and started checking in on the Skywarn net. I fell in love with it so much. The net controller asked me to become a net controller of some of the nets as a backup. So I did a few Skywarn training nets as well as our local club net, and that's kind of how I was introduced to ham radio. So after that, I got a 10-meter radio and was able to make some 10-meter contacts and just fell in love with radio HF. So we'll go ahead and take this back down. So after that, I met Dwayne, Whiskey 4 Foxtrot Delta Tango, become friends, and he helped me put up a 40-foot tower as well as build a hex beam. So at that point, all what I did was chase DX, specifically South America. So chasing DX was fun. I really enjoyed it, but there was a lot of times that there was nothing on, no DX stations. I heard a lot of local stations. Then I would go on 20 or 17 or 40, all the bands, and call CQ, and my call at the time was Kilo India 4 November Victor India. And it felt like, I don't know, having a Kilo India 4 call, just being a local, it's like not a lot of people wanted to talk to you. There was people that I've talked to that came back to my CQ, but more or less they didn't. Okay, so we put the Versity on top of the tripod. Then I'm just going to use 2 of these extension arms just to kind of do a mock. We'll go ahead and turn the GoPro on, make sure it's recording, and it is. So after I put the tower up, the hex beam up, chased DX a couple times, but then I just got bored with it fairly quickly. There was a lot of times there was no DX stations to be heard, and it was very hard to make local contacts, it seemed like, on HF bands. So I ended up selling everything. Sold the tower, gave the hex beam to my buddy Dwayne, and just got out of ham radio altogether. Moved up to Alaska, got my KL call, which I was super stoked about. Then I was like, all right, well now I'm the DX. And little did I know about Alaska propagation, it didn't work out too well. So I bought a station here, put up a hex beam, a KIO hex beam, and yeah, learned very quickly about Alaska propagation. Got frustrated with it once again. Sold everything except for the hex beam. It's still up. And then a buddy of mine, Brian, he's like, and this one was Pota was first coming out. He's like, you should check that out. With propagation here in Alaska, I live in a subdivision, and a subdivision full of igloos. If you're wondering, you wouldn't believe how many times I get asked that. Hey, since you live in Alaska, you live in an igloo, right? Sure. Subdivision full of igloos, a lot of underground power, so there's a lot of interference here. All the interference plus Alaska propagation, I really got fed up with it fairly quickly. Sold everything. Then a buddy of mine, Brian, and this one, when Pota was coming out, he said, you should check into Pota, Parks on the Air. And I was like, well, that sounds pretty cool. And the rest is history. And that's how ham radio was revived for me. Parks on the Air. I love getting out and setting up portable operations where there's no interference, and you know, I can just have a good time and play radio. And that's what really saved the hobby for me. All right, we are up in the air. All right, since we're using a horizontal dipole and it is directional, we can now crank the crank, and it's turning the whole mast right into the limbs. Hey Mom, got our antenna rotor. Pretty cool stuff. All right. And that is the 33-foot Mastwerks tripod. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Until next time, 7-3.